And the reason why is because women will notoriously, when they're kind of in the thrusting hip movement position, they start acting like guys, meaning they just start moving really fast. I'm like, whoa, whoa, you need to slow down. And then the second thing they say is, this is really hard.
It's a lot of work.
This is a lot of work. And so the number one thing that women misunderstand a lot of times for the men is that it's not easy. There's a lot of expectations of get it up, keep it up, and not for too long, because then you need to come when, things are done, and then that's it. And there can be pressure on any one of those three.
All right. Well, it's a real pleasure to have on again Dr. Saida Désilets and now her partner, Erin Michael. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
I'm so excited actually to meet Erin. Actually, you guys, it's funny to see you in person live. It's kind of like you're my sex coaches. I see you in this program that you guys created together called 9 Naughty Nights. So it's almost like I know you guys together. But we always had a couple of conversations with Saida's already. So it's really exciting for me to have Erin on, and I have questions for you. But before we unpack my experience, my journey through some of your programs, I'd like to rewind a little bit. And I want to know how the two of you first connected and what made you say this program needs to exist.
In terms of connecting, interestingly enough, it had been a student of hers had been working with me for about 3 days in Holland, getting some personal coaching. And she's like, there is somebody you absolutely have to meet, because I had shown her my book, had mentioned her name in the book. And then she put us in touch.
Yep. And after that, I brought Erin on a project, and we started collaborating and noticing each other's genius. So professionally, we connected first and worked together quite a bit, created a lot of different things for different apps, different programs, different businesses. And then finally, we're like, let's do stuff for Erin, actually, in the beginning. And then we started co-creating together. So it was really awesome.
Yep. And then after that, we sort of discovered, you know what? Maybe there might be something here besides just a professional relationship. And so we call it a creationship.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about relating, we create together.
Yeah.
Creationship. I love that. So you guys had your own programs, your own businesses related to relationships and sex and issues revolving around it. And then you can continue to get together. And you do have the Embodied Love University. Is that what it's called? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Embodied Love University. Such a great name. And you have all these programs. So there's so many, wow, where do I even start? There's something for everyone. And we've touched on so many things already with Saida, but when I talked to her, I said, look, which program would be best for me? And that's when you recommended the 9 Naughty Nights program.
So this was interesting. I was gonna say, this is interesting how that one was created, because essentially we had made programs for solo practices, programs to kind of focus on the partner. And then we just kind of went, you know what? We don't have a program, and there aren't any programs out there on actual intercourse and how people can have mutual pleasure. And so then that's where 9 Naughty Nights or 9 Dates was birthed.
Yes. And in the creation of that program, we were approached by a medical doctor who's like, could you please do a medical protocol on penetration? There's so many issues. So we actually did a study, and that study was published last year in a medical journal, really showing incredible results of people doing these simple practices.
It's a great idea, because I do interview a lot of quote unquote sexperts, and everyone's got their own niche, or dealing with trauma, or dealing with long-term marriages or recent divorce. So everybody's got their thing. But what you guys have created, it's really unique. And I mean, maybe there exists other things, I don't know, but I haven't fallen upon anything like this. And it is something that I was thinking, yeah, this is a good fit for me. It's almost like I tell my husband, I said, we're going to sex school. Like, we got to learn how to do sex. Like, I don't think we've been doing it right. It's not that we've been doing it right, but it's like after 30 years of marriage, you're like, God, let's just spice things up. It's not like I had the trauma, at least that I'm aware of, or anything like that. So this is a really great fit. And I think it's a really good fit for anyone who's been in a long-term relationship, whether it's 30 years or maybe even 3 years. can probably get stale after a while, and you need to understand the biomechanics of sex and how to connect with your partner, because sometimes we're just all in our head and it's just us. And I think part of the beauty of having a sexual relationship is having that connection or that intimacy. It's not just penetration and let's just get this over with. I mean, it shouldn't be like that, in my opinion. I want it to be fun and exciting and new and fresh. And this is what you've created. So I really want to, I can speak to anyone who has questions about this program. You can talk to me and I can give you my opinion, but you do have a lot. And I encourage people to go to your website and look at all the different things, because everyone's got something different. But the program that you created, the 9 Naughty Nights, something really unexpected came up for me. And I was really enthusiastic. I was totally curious. My husband came on board because I asked him to, but he wasn't really excited about it. And in our last episode with Saida, you pointed out that this can land on like, he can be interpreting this as, oh, you're just not good enough and our lovemaking needs fixing, or even when that really wasn't the intention. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because I would have never thought of that. And I would like to know, Aaron, from a man's perspective, what might be happening internally when a woman dives into some sort of growth-oriented intimacy program and her partner feels hesitant or flat. What's your take on it?
I mean, I completely agree with what she said. I mean, in terms of, there's kind of two general things that I notice, and it's somewhere between anxiety and surprise, especially if there hasn't been a lot of communication around this being a struggle. Then if it's not broke, why fix it? And then that can either land as anxiety, which is like, oh, is there something wrong with me? Or surprise, which is, I didn't know this was going on. For how long has this been going on? What is it exactly that's going on? Which then leads to a lot of these questions. And frankly, whoever is the one that's typically introducing this to the other partner a lot of times may have that reaction. What I've noticed, however, is that a partner who is invited into the possibility of more as an adventure, as a curiosity, it's, hey, things are great, I want to explore this, or I've actually been struggling with some pain and numbness. It's not your fault. It's just something that's happening with my body. And I believe there's some ways that we address it. Could we turn this into an adventure together? Then it becomes an invitation of possibility, which helps the initial reaction of anxiety or a negative surprise. Instead, it turns into, oh, wait, you're wanting to have some dates with me where we can connect more, have more sex? All right. I mean, a lot of men are like, I'm down for that.
Yeah, I think I'm so glad I have you guys as my sex coaches, because I was I feel like, oh, I was so selfish. Like, I didn't even think about what he's thinking about. And it's this menopause phase as well. In general, I feel empowered. I'm like, yeah, let's do something new. Let's have a different voice. I think a lot of women can relate to this, going through menopause, loss of hormones. You become, I don't know, it's more that it's my turn kind of a thing, because many of us, not all of us, have been serving or giving or taking care of families or raising things or making money in the household, whatever it is that your role is. And then you kind of go, well, now is a time for me. And it can be selfish, but at the same time, when you're dealing with couples, here I am like being totally selfish. Like, it's my turn, honey. Let's do it my way. We've been doing it your way for 30 years. And he's surprised, like, well, wait a second. Like you said, is there something wrong with it? It was fine. Like, everything was great. But perhaps internally over the years, I've been like, all right, let's just do this. You know, it's the way we've been doing all the time and it's fine, but without that pleasure that perhaps I used to feel. And this is where I'm going, well, wait a second. When I hear other people talking about sex and how mind blowing it is and how great it can be in menopause and this, I'm like, wait, I want to eat what she's eating. Like, whatever she's having, give it to me. So this is why I'm having so many sexperts on, because I think we do have different challenges and different experience, different needs. But I do think that this period of life is about empowerment, but yet I also don't want to cross the line and be like, it's all about me now, forget about you. This is a joint experience. So I appreciate your being very open and explaining things to me too, because my poor husband is probably feeling like really down in certain things. So he didn't want to quite. I turned my phone on do not disturb, and oh, it's because my son. Oh, says. So, anyways, where was I? So the 9 naughty nights. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about this program, but before we do, I want to pick Aaron's brain a little bit more now that we have him here. So, because you work with men and you work with couples around the world, you're helping them understand intimacy through the body, not just the mind. And you also dealing with people in midlife and their relationships. So I have to ask you, if you had to name one thing that women commonly misunderstand about men's sexual desire, their appetite and performance in midlife, what would that be?
I'll start with one, but it could easily give you a kind of a top three. But I would say the first one, though, that we actually was most surprising when we're teaching workshops and we're teaching people how to coordinate hips and all this. And in the 990 nights, we'll even recommend sometimes that people reverse roles. And the reason why is because women will notoriously, when they're kind of in the thrusting hip movement position, they start acting like guys, meaning they just start moving really fast. I'm like, whoa, whoa, you need to slow down. And then the second thing they say is, this is really hard.
It's a lot of work.
This is a lot of work. And so the number one thing that women misunderstand a lot of times for the men is that it's not easy. There's a lot of expectations of get it up, keep it up, and not for too long, because then you need to come when, things are done, and then that's it. And there can be pressure on any one of those three. So that would probably be the number one misconception, I would say. The second one is that guys want to have sex all the time,
It's not
especially
true. That's not
there's
true.
especially as we get older, and let's say if our physical health isn't in the best of condition, then we can have a lot of, and this is the number one thing affecting men, and it's not just men over 40, it's men under 40 as well, is performance anxiety, dealing with the psychological side of things.
You're
So that would
right.
probably be the
Yeah.
second one.
Yeah, we always think it's so easy. Like it's a natural inborn thing and you're programmed for that. And so it's easy to get it up, it's easy to keep it up. And maybe it's hard to control orgasm. I think that's quite universal. We believe this sort of stereotype, but what you're saying is that it's not always the case and it's just a stereotype, right?
And then the third one I would say is that men are selfish lovers. A lot of men deeply, deeply want to serve their partner. And this kind of ties back to the first question, which is there's a common dynamic that goes off between men and women. Most men think that they are giving pleasure to their partner. It means that they're doing something for their partner's pleasure. However, most women are actually allowing their partner, which means that they are not doing something, but for their partner's pleasure. Let me explain that again. A lot of times, a guy will think that he's doing something for the partner's pleasure, which would mean that then she's kind of receiving that pleasure. However, as you stated, maybe she's not communicating and something inside her is going, this doesn't really feel so great. So I'm going to allow him to do his thing because he can then enjoy the pleasure. And that creates a big miscommunication. So that way, when finally the person goes, hey, I'm rediscovering my body, let's try something else. It actually hasn't worked for a long time. That's when then you have the anxiety and the surprise that pop in.
Oh my God, you're so right. It's true. Actually, I can totally see that happening. Yeah, because so both people are thinking they're giving pleasure to the other when in fact they may not be. But if there's no communication and saying, hey, that doesn't feel so good, or I feel nothing, or let's try something new, which we don't do that. I don't know if the new generation is like that, but my generation is very, I guess you see people's eyes, you get their body language, and you're trying to read the other. But I think as we know, the thoughts in your head can't be read by the other person all the time.
Yes.
Right?
One thing that I loved about meeting Aaron on a personal level is he's the first partner I've had where he's a sex nerd. He just wants to know what was that experience like. And so the typical answer, like, oh, it was great. He's like, no, 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 I want details. Like, what were the textures? What are the sensations? Did you notice this moment? What about that moment? I'm like, what are you, you're weird. It was weird at first.
Who asks that? But it's
right.
right.
It was weird because it was so detailed and specific. But now I'm used to it and I love it. In fact, sometimes I'm the one asking the questions. But what's been lovely and how we coach couples is we do need to have a conversation. If you make someone a meal and you're like, yeah, it was good. It's like, oh, what did you like about it? Well, I like this part, but this part was a little bit weird. Yeah, I thought it was weird too. And then you can make adjustments and make it better the next time. So it's part of the discovery process. And we are different day to day and different times of the day. So by giving feedback, it's really important, especially for female bodies. Maybe I'm fine, especially during this perimenopause, menopause. Maybe I'm fine. Then one day I'm like, owie, that doesn't feel nice. For whatever reason, maybe I had tension and stress that day. So if I can communicate that, not just after, but even during, and he then can adapt what he's doing because he's getting information, now it feels good to me. Now I'm opening my body. Now I'm suddenly more juicy because I communicated. This is a very important skill that isn't taught in schools. It's not taught through porn. It's not taught through sexual education. So we do need to have a lot better reveal of our experiences together.
And if I could add a point to that as well, to kind of play off of that is, I mean, if you go to a wine tasting, the sommelier asks you all these questions. Did you catch this note? Did you catch that note? And what at first you're like, I don't know if I tasted the whetstone from the west side of the mountain, where the sun is rising or not. But after time, guess what? Your palate develops. So by having these discussions, you develop more interoceptive awareness. The more you start to feel yourself from the inside, the sensations start to grow because you're paying attention to them.
Ah, okay. That makes sense to me. And that actually, there is a question that I had for Saida, because in the program, you guys talk about the giver and the receiver and how the receiver can really dramatically increase pleasure by just moving the hips or the pelvis around at different angles. And Saida, when you describe your own experience, and you guys are talking about this, it sounds so rich. It sounds so orgasmic. So I've been exploring this, like moving my hips and trying different angles, but my sensations are more subtle. So the question was, okay, am I doing something wrong, or is Saida just more sensitive? But it sounds like what you're saying, Erin, is that as you talk about it and as you explore, then you become more sensitive to the sensations. Is that right?
Yeah, think about it like your brain doesn't like to waste energy. So it will give a general feel of all your body and specific feels to areas that you pay attention to more. So if you're always paying attention to the bicep, you're going to have way more sensitivity and somatic awareness of your arm. But the genitals in general, people don't spend a lot of time really exploring and mapping out each little millimeter. So the brain has a general real estate there. As soon as you start, this is why Awaken the Sensual Woman, you remember Zora, we talked about that in another program. Why that program is so important for women is that ability to spend time with your own body, touching and breathing and moving differently increases that real estate. So the brain goes from generalized awareness to very specific awareness. Your interoceptive awareness, the ability to feel from the inside, increases dramatically, and that increases your ability. Well, now you're feeling more sensation. And so now I can follow my pleasure because I feel it more. And that's when the hip movements and the angle adjustment makes sense because I'm actually tracking and following and being led by the sensations that are moving through the body. And this just takes practice. You're not broken. I'm not special. I've just devoted many decades actually to this part of my body and exploring it because I love so much the experience of great sex. And so it's been important to me. It's not important to everyone, but if you make it important, no matter what stage of life, I have literally seen women who cannot have sex, like no intercourse for over a decade, reclaim their vulvas, their vaginas, and their husbands write me and thank me and like, oh my gosh, I'm having incredible sex. But the woman is as well. She is feeling, she's generating some of her greatest orgasms much later. I'm talking women in their 60s and 70s. So that's exciting to me because now we look at the nervous system and our capacity doesn't have an age limit. it has an attention limit. So if you don't attend to it, you're going to get general feels. If you attend to it, you're going to get those spectacular, much more specific feels.
Okay, so let's get practical here then. So I'm thinking if you probably the more you explore yourself or the more you give slight touch, I want to understand how to do this on the fastest way possible. Because if I'm thinking I'm only having sex once a week, maybe twice, then I don't give myself enough time. So should I daily be doing some touch by myself? Just some, I don't want to call it masturbation, but just exploration, I guess, with different touches. How can a woman who's maybe like me going, okay, I'm not going to, maybe she has sex once a month or like it's not going to happen very soon, I imagine, if you don't give it attention and time. So what does it look like on a practical day by day or week by week practice?
It's very, very important to understand how we are conditioned. If we are not conditioned to notice pleasure, we will notice it less and less. We start to condition ourselves to notice pleasure, we'll notice it more and more. It's just how the nervous system is. So that's what I said earlier.
It's like when you buy a white car, you see all of a sudden there's
all the white cars or the red cars. So a daily practice, and I like to call it self-loving. It's just put a little love in this. It doesn't always have the goal of orgasm. It has the goal of like, hey, how am I? Just some connection. And that generates more oxytocin. Just the ability to touch ourselves in a loving way. We need and want more oxytocin. It makes us have more plasticity, which means we can reinvent ourselves better and better. So oxytocin, self-touch every day. And then the specificity of engaging with our genitals, the discovery is extraordinary. And that will not happen once a month. So if we just do a little bit every day as a little, let me just touch here and breathe, even if it's just a few moments. I think Erin maybe can take us through something. But just that attention, that care, and bringing your awareness, bringing your breath, actually sensing, not just your finger sensing the body, but the body sensing the finger, this back and forth, develops an extraordinary interoceptive awareness, which we absolutely need, especially in partnered experiences. That way we can increase the shared pleasure.
So I'd imagine probably the easiest way, what I'm thinking about for myself, I like to anchor habits. If I say, okay, I'm going to do this every day, well, then probably when you're in the shower or putting lotion on your body, and it's not just the genitals, I guess it's also the breasts or anywhere you may feel sensitive and pleasure. Maybe for some people it's the back of the neck. I don't know. You guys know this better than me. But I would say that's probably an easy way to go about it and just spend a minute or two every day. I like doing things every day because if I say I'm going to do it 3 times a week or once a week, I just not going to happen. So I usually, when I give people protocols, I'm like, just do it every day, even if it's just a little bit. So if everybody did like say 1 minute of exploration, self-pleasure per day, trying different things over time, I guess it would happen much more quickly where you'd be able to be more sensitized. That's what I'm looking for. Like, I want to be where somebody just barely touches me and I'm like, oh, that just feels so good. And that's what I think would be interesting to get. And I think that's what you're saying is.
Yes, I would just want to say one little thing because the way in which we encourage people to self-practice is state of relaxed arousal, which we've spoken about before. And I want to just make it very clear that if a woman has had a lot of difficulties, sometimes arousal can feel scary. So relaxed arousal is a lovely way for her body to feel safe in exploring herself. So it's just a really sweet way where you first allow yourself to connect with your body through breath and going, okay, I'm actually going to touch. Would you love to receive touch? Literally asking whatever body part and learning that practice of asking permission, because so many of us have not had that asked of us and we've had a lot of violations. So in the rewiring of the self-care, touching with permission, and then with that permission, the body's like, oh yeah, the party is on. Once she understands that this is fun, it's safe, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to be a certain way, I'm just receiving this yumminess from myself, then you're starting to condition the body towards being curious about pleasure and sensation. And that's the direction why daily practice is so vital.
I want to ask Erin, because you mentioned orgasm, and I would like to hear from the guy's perspectives. I think when you have intercourse, again, this is me projecting my thoughts on him. What does a man really think? I'm thinking he's looking for orgasm. He's trying to give her pleasure. He's waiting for her to have orgasm. So I have a lot of pressure. I'm like, okay, I don't want him to wait so long, and let's just try to, let it happen. But that's a lot of pressure. So lately I've just been like, just, relax, like just, it'll happen, but not have that pressure. But is the end goal in a man's mind, let's get her to orgasm? And if she doesn't, what's he thinking?
A lot of times, yes. A lot of times the guy's thinking, if I do not give my partner an orgasm, then I have failed in my male duties. And that puts a lot of pressure on both partners, frankly. And it's not the recipe for things going well. The other one, actually, in my book I wrote about, I call it the race and chase, which is where you have two partners trying to get their orgasm first because they know once one gets their orgasm, then it's kind of over. So whoever gets it first. And then they kind of go, well, maybe once in a while the stars will align and we can both have it at the same time. But this is really a model of this, like a predominantly sympathetic orgasm where you have your arousal phase, you then end up getting to climax, and then after that, everything drops off, and you're normally like, I'm overstimulated. Okay, let's stop. What Saida is speaking about with relaxed arousal and what we're actually showing in 9 Naughty Nights is how you can start to have a state where you have orgasms in a predominantly parasympathetic state. Now, this sort of flies in the face of what the entire industry is saying about orgasm. Now, to be able to do this, there is a very specific way that you can start to breathe. So if you wanted to have a practice that would be there with you every day, as opposed to just, okay, in the morning I'm going to touch myself this way, which please do that, is to actually start with changing the way we breathe, which ironically is the way that we were born breathing, but have trained ourselves out of.
How do we breathe? How are we supposed to breathe?
You're dangling that carrot in front of Zora.
Oh, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it this way. What is a woman typically told to do in terms of exercises to be able to have a strong pelvic floor?
Oh, well, like the Kegels and
Kegels.
pulling up and yeah.
Precisely. Also, what are women told when it comes to creating more sensation, or what is a good vagina? And I say vagina specifically because we're talking internally. They're told that it should be tight. Precisely. And also you squeeze for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the sympathetic state, when you go into fight, flight, or freeze, everything also tightens up. So if there has been any trauma as well, if you're always going to that squeeze, then that kind of arousal in terms of from the body's perspective is very similar. So that is going to then bring you to a place of, frankly, either back towards that trauma or even just having that squeeze is going to create tension. But on top of it, what are we told in terms of how we should walk around in the world? We need to pull our stomachs in. We need to have the bikini body. Frankly, just here where we're sitting, our butts rolled forwards, our shoulders are kind of down. So everything is already squeezed and pulled up. And as we walk through the world this way, we've trained ourselves to do that. So actually, when we were children, we breathed very differently. And if you ask any pelvic floor specialist worth their degree, they will tell you that natural breathing is that when you inhale, not only does the diaphragm lower so that your lungs can expand, but also the pelvic floor is gently going to lower. And then as you exhale, it will relax. So this is literally the opposite way that we are breathing. So there's a whole other system that we can access in order to start to train our bodies to experience different states of pleasure. And this has a completely different effect on the anatomy as we understand it as a system of pleasure, not just reproduction. And if you want, of course, I can take you through how to do that breathing practice because it's quite simple.
Okay, let's do it.
You want to do it? All right.
Right.
So we call it the inhale push. And what you're going to do is first, because we need to untrain ourselves, I'm going to break it down into steps, but then we're going to put it together very smoothly. And sometimes this can take a little bit of time to learn, just like riding a bicycle, because we've trained ourselves to do the opposite for so long. So the very first thing is we'll start off with, for those who don't know where their pelvic floor is, and frankly, this works for guys, there's a whole ton of benefits for them as well. If you were to squeeze your pelvic floor muscles as if you were trying to stop your urinary stream, this is what would be called a typical Kegel, for instance, and then release that. Now, imagine if you wanted to gently increase your urinary stream. You would then gently push out the pelvic floor. If you had a mirror, or if you were to then cup your hand over the vulva, or even just over the perineum, you'd notice that there would be a gentle expansion. If you don't feel that, a lot of times it's because there's a lot of tension there. So this will start to increase over time the ability to have it actually just expand out naturally. Now, the key to this, so that it's not just a reverse Kegel, is connecting this to your entire breathing apparatus as well as then the body mechanics that you have. So the next thing I'd like you to do is let's go ahead and take your hands and just place them up here on your chest. So if you take a deep breath, can you feel how your chest expands into your hand?
Yeah.
And then exhale. If you were to take your hand now and bring it to your lower belly, like between your pubic bone and your belly button, and take a breath and allow it to actually expand out into your hand. It's literally the opposite of what you do for the perfect bikini body. Do you feel that expand out?
Yeah.
And then relax. Now, this next one's a little bit trickier. We're going to bring that breath even deeper, all the way to the pelvic floor. Gently push out your pelvic floor, and now breathe into your belly, pushing out your hand, but see if you can get that breath to expand the pelvic floor even further.
I
And
wish
then
you could put your
exhale
hand also on your vulva and see
completely.
Can help. Yeah.
if you
So this
can
would be
feel that.
something you'd take a mirror, for instance, or I mean, some people I'll literally tell them, go ahead, make a little private video for yourself with your mobile phone, watch it, do this, and then notice in a week how much more the change happens. Placing your hand and feeling that is also going to be a really big help to it. So you get the visual, but also then the biofeedback. And as you do this, the last part is if you were to hold the push, take a deep inhale, and rock your butt backwards,
You're sticking your belly
your
out even.
belly goes forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel how there's now more space to do that?
Yeah.
And then if you exhale, then you relax. Most of us, though, of course, if we're sitting like this, now you don't have access. If you were to try that, you can't do it as easily. If you remember in Nine Naughty Nights, remember how we're having you do all of those hip movements?
Mm-hmm.
So this same breath directly translates into the bedroom. And what it does internally is it brings all of those deeper erogenous zones towards the entrance. And you literally will be able to then suction on to your partner. And when you relax, bring them in. So this does two things. It one lowers those erogenous zones, but also brings a lot of blood flow to the area. And you need more blood flow to the erectile tissues to have oxygen, which is then going to allow for the nerves to fire off and register pleasure. And the third thing it does, it actually allows you to then be bringing in the partner. Most of us are going to tense on the receiving side because something happens too quickly. This empowers the receiver to become active.
Yeah, I remember that lesson, and I'm wondering then how do we know that, like you said, it's like the suction, like the bringing it in, and I don't know how to do that. Like, how do we know?
You
Do I
will
have to ask my
first,
partner, like, do you feel me? Like,
you
without,
can,
it's
but
different than Kegels, like just
yeah,
pushing and pulling.
you will know by using your own finger first. It's
Ah,
a the finger, your fingers are incredible biofeedback. I mean, if you start really using your fingers as a tool to resensitize and activate this whole pleasure structure, you're going to be amazed at not only like what you're feeling your body doing. You'll learn a lot faster as well because you're getting direct feedback. But at some point, you'll even feel the current that is generated in an awakened vulva. It feels like an electric current going up your hand, up your arm. And I mean, it's really lovely. And it does translate into the shared experience. So we kind of like charge each other's up, genitals up with that level of training. So it starts first, get really comfortable and if you don't want to go inside right away, fine. But there are stages to the learning process. Eventually though, you will feel like when you yawn open the vagina, that's why it's yawning open just by doing the mechanics that Aaron shared. And then when you relax, it has a natural feeling that it does. So you practice that alone first, and then you can practice it with your husband's finger.
Yeah,
and
this,
then you can
yeah.
try the penis. So see, there's stages where you're like, I'm just biomechanically learning something new, and can you notice anything? And if he says no, you're like, oh, well, I'm feeling something. It's layers of learning together. And maybe he will, because at some point, usually lovers will say, your vagina feels like a hungry mouth.
Sucking it all in. It
Right.
reminds me a lot about, I interviewed Kim Vopni, I'm not sure if you know her, the vagina coach, and she's all about pelvic floor health. And she's a pelvic floor specialist. And so she explained to me, and I loved her program, Buff Muff. I'm, plugging this because I think it's so great. It's such a good program. And what she does teach you is exactly that suction. Instead of doing kegels, she says, imagine a blueberry on the floor and then you're picking it up with your vagina, or a straw and you're sipping from the straw. So it's a really different idea than just squeezing. And when I asked her, how do I know if I'm doing right? She said, just like you stick your finger in there, either get a pelvic floor specialist to tell you, or you put your finger in there, or your partner's finger, or eventually your partner's penis. You can figure that out. And yeah, I think it's the same idea, right?
One thing I would say to distinguish it, because most people are going to be getting that pulling up by then again squeezing, and then also like drawing up. This is actually, imagine what you do with your mouth. If you were to bring a finger in, you would, as opposed to going this way and then pulling it in, just by reaching your lips out, then when you relax, it's going to come in. So
that when you're eating.
Yeah.
does that make sense? And the difference is because what happens with the internal anatomy is if you squeeze and pull up, the cervix and everything pulls away. If you were to read, for instance, Sherry's book on the anatomy of pleasure, the section, it's page 132.
It used to be. We don't know if
It used to be.
edited.
There is a section where it's describing female orgasm as the vagina elongates, the cervix removes itself at a comfortable distance in order to avoid the battering penis and to make a sperm receptacle. Well, this is actually when you're going into a relaxed arousal state that opens up these more almost psychedelic-like trance states of like prolonged orgasm, the cervix instead is coming down and joining to meet the head of the penis. And if you actually were to look at the cervix, it looks very much like a head of a penis. If you're to ask any gynecologist, for instance, but those two join, and there's a lot of beautiful magic that starts to happen as everything begins to sensitize, and you create then, as opposed to pushing into each other, you play with the suction seal that is there. We don't go into a ton of the body mechanics in Nine Naughty Nights because we want to keep it simple by just introducing one little thing, and then have people start to follow that experience will start to grow over time, and these things happen naturally, which helps to avoid with the anxiety that we spoke of earlier of getting overwhelmed.
Yes, exactly. Small steps.
Super interesting. So the nine naughty nights, I want to go back to this. My big takeaway, because I've only done 7. I'm so bad. I've had this program for months.
Some couples, like, it'll take a year to do all 9 dates. So don't worry, because they just love the one thing and they play around with 1 or 2 or 3, and then one day they'll add another one. There's no rules to the experience, but I think you will enjoy all of the dates when you get through them all.
Well, after going through 7 of them, my big takeaway is kind of that sort of jackhammer style sex, in and out, penetrative sex, grinding. is out. Okay. I think hopefully the women who've listened to all my sexperts, we kind of realize, okay, that's not working for us anymore. And now we want flow, we want movement, we want this rhythm, and that's very much in. And when my husband watched that first night with me, he noticed that. I reinforced it. And our sex life is better thanks to you guys for showing me that, because I just wouldn't know how to do that. But the reality is, like, I noticed, well, my husband's no dancer. He doesn't tango or salsa, or not even even do a shimmy. Aaron, when you're a man that you can do all of this, and you've got this like dancing gene, but my husband doesn't have it. I would love for him to have that, because it's the rhythm, this rhythm, and how do I get my husband to do that if it's not natural for him?
I have to admit something. This is a little bit, you could say vulnerable for me. I don't know about that. My first girlfriend, when I was in Costa Rica, she was half American, half Costa Rican, grew up doing salsa. To me, salsa is what you put on chips. So I had no clue about this. And I literally remember her wanting to go and teach me how to dance. Where this is embarrassing. We were sitting in the back seat of the taxi. She's having the taxi driver who's witnessing all of this, of course, with the gringo, which is what they call the Americans in Costa Rica, change it to a station that has some salsa. And she's, all right, Aaron, we're now going to like just tap out 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this idea that the dancing gene is in me that's a myth. So
Okay, that's good.
I literally like trying to just figure out how to tap and do these things. Now, the beauty of this is because you said your husband's not a dancer, your sex life improved. So that is evidence that you don't need to be a dancer. And I would add, in addition to this, I've talked to plenty of clients who have been with dancers that do not translate into the bedroom. So we typically think of sex being a performance, and even this kind of like big movements and all of this kind of like beauty, like, and you will even see on Instagram all that. And I continually critique that because the truth is, when these kind of attunements happening, because the skill that you're developing is that ability to connect and the ability to feel your partner, there's a lot of micro movements. And it's your ability to sense your partner more than to do the perfect swivel and hips and everything else. Because then you could just be off in your own mind. You might as well be in front of a mirror. But can you attune to the partner's body? And someone watching it from the outside, they actually might not really be able to see what happens because just the tiniest little bit of movement generates a ton of sensation on the inside. I mean, a lot of times when women are stimulating themselves, they're also not doing these big, gigantic things. It can be the subtleties. So this then translates for a guy to be able to go, okay, I'm just going to be able to move my hips just a little bit. And it gets broken down. So all of us who aren't rhythmically gifted.
And the inhale push that we shared earlier is the first step to that. If he can just breathe with his pelvic floor, there's already micro movements that will be translated through the penis. So maybe there's not a lot of hip movement.
Yeah.
He's inside, but he breathes with that inhale push. There's movement. So it's a really beautiful skill once men really understand how to do. That's why YAFAP, it's a male program, is so great, and it really does improve men's experience of sex, but it also improves it for the female, even though the focus isn't on the female.
I think the beauty what gets discovered is that because both of you are learning that inhale push, learning to move your hips in the same way, you're like, oh my goodness, our bodies are meant to complement one another. And that breaks another big myth, which is men and women are opposites in terms of their pleasure. When our bodies are shut down and we have numbness and pain, very much we do end up on the opposite end of the spectrum. But as we open up towards each other, we start to find out that our bodies have way more similarities than they do differences. And then our bodies will complement and supplement one another's sensations.
So you have what's this program called for the men? I want to know.
Yeah, FAP. And it's
To play on words a bit.
play on words because there's a huge movement called no FAP. FAP is just the sound of a man masturbating. Aaron was like trying to figure this out.
I was like, I mean, I'm a linguist. I'm like, okay, FAP, it's some kind of acronym.
It's just FAP, FAP, FAP. It's a sound.
It's an onomatopoeia, which is a horrible one, but it is.
So there's a whole movement called no FAP trying to help men like get off of porn. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. So Aaron, as a I don't know, tongue in cheek, said, no, actually, it's not about stopping your masturbation practice. It's about actually self-pleasuring and really activating pleasure with your own body. So yeah.
Using your self-pleasuring as the training ground
Exactly.
for epic sex.
So it's incredible because it's super empowering. And then there's levels to it. So the guy can do it on his own. It's like 1 minute and then adds a second minute the next day. Can do it on his own. It's 21 days.
Yeah.
But then you can invite the partner to join and you can then assist him in his practice, which women love. They're like, oh my God, I can do that with my husband. That's amazing. And then there's layers of the assistance as well. So you can assist with your hand or your mouth or eventually also with your vagina. So it's just a really, really great, empowering program to allow men to feel like they actually can feel something. And it actually works both if the man has, say, ejaculatory choice issues, whether it's too fast or delayed, it solves both of those. And for men, I think for me, what's been most impressive, why I love it so much, is within 3 days, they're already feeling things that they've never felt before. And often they quit the program before the 21 days because they're like, this is the best ever. And they're only at day 5 or 7. And we're like, no, don't quit there because there's just even more available to you. So we encourage them to complete the whole thing and to actually continue with it. So
we're talking like 6 minutes of practice over 3 days. Like
yeah.
Day 1 is 1 minute, day is 2 minutes, day 3 is 3 minutes, and then you build up to 21 minutes by the 21st day. And some people will, again, just like 9 dates, decide to take longer than 21 days. They might space it out over 3 months. Just depends.
So
that's so interesting. So what I'm learning here is that there's a lot of muscles that we need to train in order to become a bit more sensitized and focus. And it's like when you go to the gym and you do a new workout and you're like, oh, I didn't know I had muscles there. They are sore. So it's kind of bringing that attention back to your body that's probably been ignored for a while, and then training it to have more pleasure, which I think is pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah. It would be one of the factors, yes, biomechanics.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I had something else in my mind, but I forgot it. I'm going to move. Well, it'll come back to me. But I think we're going to have to wind up now. But you guys are so interesting. I love having a man here and that I can openly ask these questions, what's going through a man's head. So, Aaron, then, what would you say to a woman who's in midlife, who is recently divorced? She's feeling rusty or vulnerable. She's anxious about her first sexual encounter after probably a long break. What advice do you have for her?
My number one advice would be to, again, rediscover herself. And what I specifically mean is, again, it's not just masturbation. It's not just feeling oneself, but starting to actually resensitize. So this also plays with, again, the inhale push. When you're doing this inhale push, what you're doing is you're actually allowing the body to choose how much pressure it wants. So first is, in order to begin to feel yourself, start to explore, feel for where there's numbness, feel for where there's even pain, feel for where there's pleasure. And then where you have numbness, understand that a lot of times it's because that area has received a certain amount of pain. The body has kind of created a buffer towards that, which then creates numbness. I believe the greatest thing that is sort of plaguing society is not actually pain, it's numbness. And by the definition of numbness, we don't know it because we can't feel it. And the second that numbness starts to awaken, it can feel like pain. So what you're going to do is, using the touch of simply making contact to the area, as opposed to pushing into it, allow your body to do the inhale, push, and breathe, and then relax. There's a lot more layers we could add to it, but just that, stay with it and notice how some of the places that have the greatest pain or feel nothing actually end up becoming some of the most sensitive and strongest erogenous zones that burst into whole other layers of pleasure. And this is different than your normal advice. Just start to masturbate, because what you're going to do is you're going to learn your body. You're going to know how to navigate painful or numb situations. You're going to be able to speak up during that. And this develops a sexual confidence in yourself that then you can communicate towards a partner to guide them towards what you want, not just what you don't want. Most of us are going to say, "Oh, that hurts. I don't want that." But then neither party knows how to get towards something. This gives you the knowledge to then transfer it to a partner towards what you do want and what you need.
That's great. Yeah, because I bet when you're counting the first time a new partner, I mean, it's been 30 years for me. I don't even know what that's like anymore, but I want to speak for the women who do have that. I can imagine how nervous you may be. It's daunting. So what and I'm wondering what is going through a man's head. He's probably just as nervous as she is if he's also worried about performance and things like that. Like we don't know what's going on through his head, but I was thinking maybe if we understood that he's also nervous or even if he doesn't show it, maybe he's not. I don't know. That it helps her as well. Go, okay, it's not just me.
I think a really important thing that's to understand also is that the throat is the vagina of the cranium. It's using your voice and speaking your truth is the lube that really can create what we really would love. And so for me, my invitation for women who are reclaiming their sexual life and wanting to have this adventure is be honest. And if the person can't receive your truth in that moment, it's a no-go. We're at a stage of life now where it's like no more BS. So, hey, I'm really nervous. I haven't made love in a long time. I do it to myself, yes, but I'm a little nervous. I'm not sure how it's going to be. Would you be willing to have more of a sensual touch experience with me first, just so can kind of relax about even being close to another person's body? Is that something you'd be open to? You can design it any way you want. It doesn't have to look like traditional sex where it's awkward and suddenly you're in the dark shuffling trying to find to put something in something and it's like this awkward. It could be really beautiful. You can slow it all the way down. We are actually in control, ladies. We can create what we would love. And it is through using your voice, but it is also translating that self-love practice you're going to be doing every day, even if it's just a few minutes a day, translating that into a partnered experience. And if the person isn't willing and receptive, you don't have access to this temple. If they are willing and receptive, how cool is that? Now I have a playmate where we can explore together and I can say, oh, we're going to need to slow down, or, oh, I'm really liking that. Let's go in that direction. And it just makes actually more easy for a man when you're getting some feedback as to what to do with this new partner.
It's really important to know that until your no can be fully celebrated, you can never give a true yes.
What do you mean?
So, if we are used to not feeling comfortable saying no because it might actually turn off our partner, then we always are going to be trying to do something for them. So we can't actually identify then, well, what is it that I actually want? Because we're still hung up on, well, we need to actually please the other person. And the trick about this, though, is it's the same with ourselves. A lot of times we will override our own selves to get that orgasm, which is why if we're doing masturbation just to have an orgasm, put it this way, if we were to treat, or if we were to have a partner treat us in the same way that we often treat ourselves, which is like hurry up and get to the thing, we would kick them out. But it's often what we do to our own bodies. So our own body isn't trusting that the no is going to be heard, which is why then a lot of times it goes into numbness. It goes into this very passive frozen state. So everything we're doing about becoming an active receiver and actually being able to voice our no and to even be able to hear our body's no is the first steps to then getting to a place that we can get into our yes. Mm-hmm. And that first step is actually knowing, okay, if I say no, and I just stop even with myself because I can feel my body's not open to this, then the body goes, okay, you're listening to me. Now I will start to guide you down the path of what my yes is.
That makes perfect sense. I got it. Okay, my last question. I still have so many more, but you guys are very much about, at least what I've explored, and I know you probably have other programs that deal with more the psychological side, but the program I'm doing is very physical and somatic. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of psychoanalyst Michael Bader, and he wrote a book called Arousal. And we had a great podcast recently with him. And he said that arousal is often shut down by guilt, shame, or fear. So our brain then creates fantasies as a workaround to keep desire alive and then be able to orgasm. So from your experience helping men and women overcome sexual blocks, do you also see this playing out?
Well, I'll jump in and then Aaron has a lot to say on this topic as well. Thank you so much for this question, by the way. I think it's a really important question. I will speak from myself, my personhood first. So I had a very intense experience in my youth that almost cost me my life. So in the healing journey for the years after that, there was intense fantasies that were going on. My erotic mind was utilizing very graphic, violent type fantasies in order to process what had happened to me. At some point, it was done. I never fantasized about that. So I just wanted to share that sometimes fantasies are there because the erotic mind is wanting to heal and wanting to integrate something. So not to be judgmental, they have a season. They do move through once your psyche's like, okay, I'm satisfied that we understand this now. I also love fantasy as if I've had a really hot experience, I'm going to be thinking about it a lot. So it's not always fear and shame that drives my mind, that drives my. I'm actually remembering, ooh, that the way that finger or that tongue or that whatever moment was, wah, and I'll think about it a lot throughout the day. I'll expand into it. I'll like imagine maybe something else or a slightly different scene. So it can also come very much from a pleasurable, wonderful experience. And I want to keep building on that. So in those ways, I just wanted to bring those elements to the answer because I don't fully believe that we only use fantasy with fear and shame. And arousal, as we said, the system of arousal is arousal. It means you are on alert. It's not always fear and shame based. To wake up the body and go, something is happening is healthy. The sympathetic system it serves a good purpose. We want to be awake. We're not going to be asleep all of the time. So there's a healthy aspect to that as well that we can learn through our self-pleasuring. Again, that relaxed arousal. And then I'm going to defer to you for the next piece on the erotic mind, because I really love your thoughts on this.
Cool.
Well, one of the other ways that we actually work with clients is using fantasy as a way to explore your erotic edge. So in other words, where just let's say you have something that you'd like to try out, but you're a little bit nervous about it. So you're kind of like in between. When you have a conversation with your partner, you can start to say, I'm kind of interested in doing this, and they can give feedback on it. One of the important things in that is knowing, okay, again, knowing that your no can be respected is that just because we talk about it doesn't mean we're going to necessarily do it ever. That opens up the possibility for yes. So then you have a conversation. Once you then start to have, let's say, a sexual experience, you can bring in erotic talk around whatever it is, the fantasy, so that you're sharing it with your partner. Or if you, and this is where I would advise for someone who's a woman, like you said yourself, just starting out on her own after maybe 30 years of not being active. So then she can play with her own fantasies. Because when you're heightened arousal and you explore it, you might notice other things that you didn't when you're not aroused.
Correct.
And then you'll start to learn, oh, you know what? In that scenario, I didn't like that thing, but I did like that thing. And this could be good, and that might not be good. And so all of a sudden, you can do that then with a partner, and you'll have a much better understanding, whether you ever tried to do it or not, of what are the pieces that bring the mental aspect. Because the mind is actually embodied. It's when when our psyche has a very different idea than our body, and we have this arousal non-concordance, that there's dissonance. What we do is we bring those two together. And essentially, as opposed to the fantasy being about a specific act, there's normally kind of like a psychological dynamic that charges it up. And there's some easy ways to discover that. I don't know how much time we have, but I could
Oh,
introduce it quite quickly. I know I'm hanging another carrot there.
Oh, you have to come back.
Oh yeah, we'll have to come back then. We'll
you'll
leave
have
that
to
one
come back.
hanging.
You'll have to
Yeah.
come back. I actually, I do have to go. And I know I do want to continue this conversation because I have so much to say
Just a little
about it.
teaser there, nothing big.
Yeah.
Anticipation might be one of those, just so you know.
For you have a lot of good anticipation. Great.
I know. Okay. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to cut you off, but you guys are gonna come on again because we're gonna continue this conversation, and I want to pick up right here because I do have a lot more questions, and with so much to cover. I love these conversations, and I hope people are listening and loving it too because we don't. At least I don't seem to have them very often with my girlfriends or people I know. If I'm starting to, but it doesn't seem to happen very often. I encourage women who are listening to please go find that girlfriend who will talk to you about these things. But it's great to have a guy on as well that you go, okay, what's from a man's perspective? What do you think? Because sometimes I think we could be creating stereotypes in our head that maybe are not true either. So I like to bounce those ideas off of you guys. But before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to really touch on before we wrap up and then let us know where can people find you as well?
Well, I think because you mentioned the word pleasure quite a few times, for some people that's a trigger word. So I'd love to just invite us, if pleasure doesn't work for you, then what could create curiosity or ease or joy? Like, use a different word as you're exploring. Ooh, how do I create more easeful joy in my body? Okay, so then you have a practice like that. I just wanted to make a note of that for the listeners where pleasure is like, oh, that's too much of a jump for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then finding us.
Well, finding us would be at the Embodied Love University, and that would be the place where you literally can just find programs that are tailored around your own self-practice that's focused on your partner, or the other one, which is mutual, you could say pleasure or mutual sensation.
Yeah.
Mutual sensation. I like that. So I will have links to how to find you in the show notes. And I think I would encourage them to get in touch with you if they're a bit lost because you do have so many programs and you have something for everyone. It would be good to get in touch with you and say, which one is the best for me? And we do have a code Zora for 10% off. And we also have the self-love meditation. I've been sharing this with my community and they like that. It's a little gift for our listeners. And I have a link to that in the show notes.
I would also add too that if they're looking for a personalized coaching approach, that they write to you, because we do this just through referrals, and then you can contact us and we'll know that this is someone that's being referred and we can help people online or also as well in person. And this really helps to have a bespoke, tailor-made experience that really can go to that next level of asking all the particular questions that maybe you'll ask us in the next episode.
I'm holding back. They're on the tip of my tongue.
I just want to reflect to you, Zora, how lovely it is to spend time with you and the way that you ask questions. I adore your community. I just think what you're doing is incredible. And yeah, just such a pleasure to be here. And it was really sweet to have Erin here too.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Saida told me so many wonderful things about you, and well, they were true.
I'm glad we're connected. We're going to have you on again. And if anybody's listening to the episode now, still, thank you so much for your time and spending time with us. We truly appreciate your time. And if you did like this episode, please reach out to me and let me know about it. If you want to have them on again, if you want to explore something different, if you want me to ask different questions, this is for you. The podcast is tailor-made for you. So reach out. Thank you so much for your time. The two of you, you're in Anguilla or on the Caribbean island or the Bahamas, where is it? The Caribbean island, right?
It's my mother's side of the family, Anguilla.
Anguilla. Oh, love it. So we will see you next time, another part of the world. And everyone who's listening, have a good day, good night, good morning, wherever you're at. And we'll see you next time. Take care.